When talking about the Fallout series, you might think of many things. The stories, the enemies, mutations, or even the factions. In this series, we're going to be taking a look at factions within the games and looking at how they fit in with the environment and how their story is shown. You see, the factions are the main moving parts of the Fallout franchise, and what gives overall story and substance to each individual game. They have their own intricacies, their own policies, and sometimes even raise genuine moral questions. And it's because of these small details that makes the factions one of the largest parts of any Fallout game. These factions, whether directly or otherwise, are the catalysts towards the events that transpire within each game. So grab your snacks, your drinks, and a blanket, settle down while we take a deep dive into one of the factions that makes the Fallout series so great.
The Brotherhood of Steel.
Ignoring any and all possible glitches, you are officially the most amazing person in all of Appalachia. And hopefully not the only one. The Scorch detection system is fully up and running. If you had any idea how long it took us to just get half the system functional, the lives lost, my brother, my dad, and yours truly, of course. Now whenever the Scorched are around, the detectors will pick them up and broadcast a message to your Pip-Boy. All that's left is the means to fight them off. If you haven't already, check my terminal to read about the traps we've created for the scorchbeasts. Hopefully, they're still in working order, and they're your best bet at making those flying freaks manageable. Beyond that, the only ones with any real means were the Brotherhood of Steel. Obviously, they didn't last, but they packed some serious firepower. They took their last stand somewhere in the bog at a place called Fort Defiance. But, thanks to their code names, I have no idea where it is. You'll want to start at Camp Venture, Eddie's old survival training center. I've also put everything I've got on the Brotherhood under an entry called Fort Defiance on my terminal. Good luck out there. And thanks. If this holotape is playing, it means our lives and all this work meant something.
In 2076, the NBC division of Westtech achieved a breakthrough in results in the Panimmunity Virion project, which would later be known as a forced evolutionary virus. In fear of secrets from the FEV project being leaked, the United States government moved a military team into the facility to help secure and protect the research. In January of 2077, the research was moved to the newly constructed Mariposa military base. Unbeknownst to the military team, this was to facilitate human testing on the virus. Not even 2 weeks before the bombs dropped, on October 10th, Captain Roger Maxson and his team discovered the horrors that was going on in the research of the FEV project. As such, they began a mutiny. The officer in charge of the project, Colonel Spindle, ended up suffering a nervous breakdown, seeing what the West Tech facility and later the government had sanctioned to be done on humans. Having no real leadership to control the situation, Captain Roger Maxson stepped up and began interrogating the scientists. Mere days before the bombs had dropped, Maxson and the military personnel had declared themselves to the government seceded from the United States military, but never got any response. In the days following the bombs, what would later be known as the Brotherhood of Steel began making preparations to move to the Lost Hills government bunker. On their way down to Lost Hills, they lost civilians, including Roger Maxson's wife. But it was here in the Lost Hills bunker that the Brotherhood finally had a chance to form. In the years following these tragic events, Elder Maxson had made contact with an old military comrade of his, Lieutenant Lizzie Taggarty, and told her of his visions of a Brotherhood. Today, we tell their story.
We're in the mission boundary, right, Weber?
We're at Spruce Knob. 2 clicks. We're 2 clicks from the edge.
So we hug the line, move hard, move fast, and we may catch the Marines with their pants down.
LT, you may want to listen to this.
What is it, Marino?
The comm. Chatter's weird. Let me...
No. Confirm nuclear strike on New York. Shit!
Oh, God. It's the end. The end.
Keep off! The whole channel's been blocked. Not sure how they're doing that.
Man, the brass has gone all out. Is this part of the war game, Lieutenant?
In the event of a nuclear exchange, we are to immediately seek orders from a superior. For the purpose of these war games, however, we are completely on our own, cut off from command.
Any standing orders we can fall back on, Lieutenant?
None that I know of.
Whoa! Jude!
There's one over there, too.
Mother of... This isn't no war game.
Turn that off.
Trying band, AH-13. Lieutenant! I got something.
I can't make anything out.
Sorry, working on it.
Maxson to Appalachia. Repeat, this is Captain Roger Maxson.
Give that to me.
Seeking any...
Lieutenant Taggarty here. Captain, it's you?
Lizzie. Damn. It's good to hear a friendly voice.
Captain, I heard you're a traitor.
Traitor. If disobeying unconscionable orders makes you a traitor, and I suppose I am. Lizzie, I'm glad you're alive, but I need to find someone in Appalachia. Someone dependable.
That's where I am. The Thunder was running war games against some jarheads.
So they're still in one piece. By God, Lizzie, this is good news.
Roger, you're a traitor. I could be court-martialed even talking to you.
Lizzie, look around you. The army's gone. America is fallen. I know you have questions, but we need to talk. There are things I learned at Mariposa. I got a scientist with me, Dr. Takano. Will set up a secure channel. I'll answer all your questions then.
Captain,
Lizzie, you know me.
monitor this band. Taggarty out.
Following watching The End of the World, and the only correspondence from higher up that she got being from Maxon, while it took some time, Taggarty, while skeptical, joined the Brotherhood of Steel, venturing north from a Spruce Knob Lake. They headed to an old survival training camp that they knew of, Camp Venture. After setting up shop in Camp Venture and surviving the winter, Taggarty's Thunder decided to reopen Camp Venture, not just as a survival camp, but more of a recruiting ground, to train up more soldiers to join Taggarty's Thunder and, in essence, the Brotherhood. Some people joined looking for structure, and others joined looking for a home. And in time, these soldiers began to find a home within the Brotherhood of Steel. The first batch of recruits began with 9, and only 4 passed the requirements to join the Thunder. But with this, more and more recruits began to show up. After some time, the Brotherhood began running out of space, but also needed a place to hold all of the troops and to power the place. So some of the unit went towards Thunder Mountain Power Plant, and others went down to Fort Defiance. The unit that went to Thunder Mountain was met with resistance. When they arrived at the power plant, they found that it was currently controlled by the Free States, a group of people that were distrustful of the government and military forces. Instead of going for a direct combative approach, the unit set up base just outside of the power plant and waited for reinforcements. After 2 days, they made contact with the leader of the Free States at the power plant, Deke, and opened up negotiations with him. They gave the terms that the Free States were to leave the power plant, not tamper with anything, and not fire a shot, and this was to be done within 12 hours and no one would be harmed. But if a shot was to be fired, or if any tampering was done with the plant, that they would be killed to the last man. As such, Deke accepted the terms, not wanting to fight. Travelling south to the Allegheny Asylum, the Brotherhood had 2 missions. One, to form good relations with civilian factions, and the other being the claiming and preservation of technologies that they could later use to revitalise civilization. The reason that they travelled to the asylum was also twofold. Firstly, it was large enough for them to be able to grow into, meaning that they would clear out sections of the asylum as they went along, so that they could make space for more recruits. Additional to this, it had direct connections to the Thunder Mountain power plant and communications equipment, which meant that it allowed for much easier communications and power provision. One of the missions that the Brotherhood undertook to repair relations was a super mutant containment in Huntersville. In 2082, the Brotherhood had already damaged their relations with the responders by requesting munitions from them during their mission to contain the super mutant threat. In order to make up for this, they sent a detachment of their soldiers to assist in quelling that threat, and with many lives lost from both the responders and the Brotherhood, eventually the mission was deemed to be a success. In the time following the battle within Huntersville, there was a decision made to pull troops back from Grafton Dam back to the asylum. This later affected their relationship between the responders and the Free States, as it disallowed for them to have a safe trade route between one another. This later led to one of their own members abandoning them, stating that he no longer believed in the mission. This member was Hank Madigan, a character that you will follow the trail of within the game. This did not stop their overarching mission, however. The Brotherhood still sent troops out to collect and preserve technology. With Madigan's departure from the Brotherhood of Steel, Paladin Taggarty's reluctance to bring in scribes from the outside later turned to outright refusal. This turned out to be one of the bigger downfalls of the Brotherhood, as it was a direct violation of the beliefs of Roger Maxon. It wouldn't be long, however, before the Brotherhood began to see signs of the government's experiments coming to life. The Enclave had been trying to lower the DEFCON level so that they could have access to the nuclear warheads still stationed in Appalachia, and as such, they took several measures to lower that level. It started off small, allowing low-level threats to go across Appalachia, things such as the super mutants. In one of these cases, they began experimenting on the bats that were hiding in the caves of Appalachia. They used mutation serums as a way to enhance the effects that have already gone on from the radiation on the bats, alongside the ultrasight that was found around those caves. In doing so, they created the scorchbeasts. Initially believed to be a non-threat by the Brotherhood, they disregarded the bats that they saw flying around Watoga. It wasn't until they saw more and more appearing and flying further around that they began to take action. The Brotherhood had begun to set up kill zones around the Cranberry Bog and had made a requisition back west for schematics to repel the scorchbeasts. In response, Lost Hills supplied several designs and weapon schematics to help stem the tide, including a sonic generator and an automated research program. Sadly, however, in time, the communications infrastructure had collapsed around them, and the Brotherhood were no longer able to make contact with the West Coast. This is where things took a turn for the worst. What you're about to hear is the last recorded conversation between Paladin Taggedy and Roger Maxson.
Is this urgent, Lizzie?
Elder, I've read Scribe Takano's reports. I've talked with Grant a lot, too.
Spit it out.
The sonic generators work, but there are just too many Sierra Bravos. This strategy of ours, it's just delaying the inevitable.
You're not giving up on me.
No, of course not. But I think we may need something bigger. More final.
Go on.
One of the squires on patrol found a nuclear silo. Still functional.
What? Even you, Lizzie? Are you out of your goddamn mind? Look around. Look at everything. The death, the destruction, the end of the world. That came from the nukes.
But if we don't deal with the Bravos once and for all, they could kill everyone. All life on this continent. That's what Takano said. Right?
There will always be a reason to use a weapon, always. But nukes? Never again. I'd mothball the whole technology if I could. Am I clear?
Yes, Elder.
I consider this matter resolved. I don't want to talk about it again. Maxson out.
Knowing that the situation was dire and time was not on their side, Paladin Taggedy used what was left of the research sent to them by Lost Hills to create a new form of power armor, the Ultrasight armor. The Ultrasight power armor looks as though it's an adaptation of the T-51 power armor and uses the same material that was used in the experimentation of the scorchbeasts, which could only lead one to believe that the reason why the scorchbeasts are so tough to kill is because of the ultrasight in there that reinforces their skin. Following the creation of the ultrasight armor, there was little more that could be done, so Taggedy rounded up her best trained troops and set off on one final operation, Operation Touchdown. Several transponders were left from Operation Touchdown. They are located between Appalachian Antiques and Watoga by a downed vertibird in Watoga, at Survey Camp Alpha, and at Drop Site V9. Here's what they say.
Night Moreno reporting. Moreno to Defiance, over. I read you, Moreno. Recon looking solid, Scribe. The scanning module did what you said, drove the Scorch crazy. But the miniguns tore them apart. Some of the scorchbeast, Bravos. Providing air cover, though. Have you found the end zone? That's a negative. Modules spit out new quartz deeper inside the bog. Got the transponder up? Hoof it into the next site. Good luck, Johnny. Night, Moreno. Night. God. Grant here. Are you okay? Scorched. Freaking everywhere. Next coord's acquired. Alpha Zulu. Alpha Zulu 13. Confirm. AZ-13. Are you okay? It's crazy over here, Grant. Scorched everywhere.
Fall back! Slow and steady! Into the killing ground!
Alpha Zulu 13. If we don't make it, that may be the end zone. Night Moreno to Defiance. Moreno to Defiance. The Scorch must have fried one of the transponders. At Alpha Zulu 13, end zone is a negative. Module of yours is a real treat, Grant. New chords at Echo Lab 7. Bravo's all over. We'll make it to the end zone. Night Moreno. I guess no one? If any brothers pick this up, EL7 is gold. Repeat, EL7. We got no idea how many are in the cave. There are definitely hostiles in there. God help us.
Upon entering the cavern, you're met with a grisly sight. Immediately in front of you, there's a Brotherhood scribe laid dead on a minecart. Further down, you'll find a heap of scorched, followed by multiple ultrasite veins. You'll find throughout the cave, there is nothing but more scorched, more dead Brotherhood, and even more ultrasite. Even before the bombs, the glass caverns seemed to be a place that was fraught with bad luck. Before the bombs, the company that was mining the ultrasite within the mine had to make pay cuts on each of the workers that were there. Later on, these pay cuts weren't enough. Rising expenses made it so that the company had to eventually lay off several workers. As you reach deeper into the mine, you'll find more and more and more petrified corpses. This begs a question. What are these petrified corpses? You see, you will find these corpses all over Appalachia. They are not a new sight, but this cave kind of just begins to answer the question. You see, these corpses, from what can be found around Appalachia, from what can be found within the mines, are actually the remains of Scorched. Anytime that you find Scorched, typically they will be in a statue-like state. This is done as a means of ambush, so that the Scorched can jump out on a survivor that's walking past them. When a Scorched has been in this statue-like state for a while, the ultrasite within their bodies, which can also be found protruding out of them, ends up taking over their body. Eventually, over time, rock begins to encrust their bodies until a point whereby they can no longer move. When this happens, the remainder of the body becomes encapsulated and encrusted with the ultrasite rock, and eventually it eats them from the outside in. Going up and interacting with these corpses will typically cause for them to crumble and expose a gaseous cloud of radiation. The further you delve into the mine, however, the more you come to realize this place wasn't just used for the mine. See, there are plenty of things to say that it was just the mine, But going through a couple of locked doors, looking at the position of some of the corpses, not the Brotherhood, but the skeletal remains, you realise that this mine was used for a lot more. Something more sinister. As you're fighting through the mine as well, you also see the remains of multiple animals. Only these animals look as though they've been skinned. They have a much more pale hue to them, almost as though they aren't themselves. Of course, if you go up and try to interact with their bodies, you'll notice they're actually scorched variants, which shows that the scorched plague was not exclusive to just humans. It affected everything that it touched, which is why the Brotherhood of Steel absolutely had to stop this threat. Continuing through the wreckages of the mine, you see that the Brotherhood faced so many threats. From scorched mirelurks, the actual scorched troops themselves, scorched everything was plaguing around inside the mine. It's no wonder that the Brotherhood felt it was their duty to go in there and exterminate the threat to the last. So it's already known that the cave was used to mine ultracite, which explains why there is so many ultracite veins within the mine. Additional to that, with there being water, it's explainable as to why there are glowing fungi. However, in with the shipping containers in the second main area of the mine, there is a large amount of radioactive barrels. There is never any true explanation as to why they are there. One could only presume that this is linked to the Enclave testing that created the scorchbeasts. Continuing through the mine shafts, this becomes even more evident as you will find more and more and more research equipment inside the water and in the debris. If it wasn't for the fact that the scorchbeasts were still flying overhead, you would think from the damage that has been caused inside the cavern that Operation Touchdown was a resounding success. Everything that you see around you is dead or destroyed. The Brotherhood made sure to take out everything. Finally, reaching the bottom of the mine, you are met with quite the sight to behold. Considering how outmatched and outnumbered they were, the Brotherhood dealt to these denizens a catastrophic blow. There are corpses everywhere, of scorched beasts, of scorched animals, going all the way up a rock face, all the way round to the back of the mine. It is a bloodbath. Anyone would think that everything in the area was dead. At least until... As we looked both left and right in that room, we saw broken down infrastructure. This infrastructure was actually a lab constructed by the Enclave. It turns out that the glass cavern was not just the home for the Scorched, but in actuality, it's the place that they were made. While we're in this facility, we also find the final transponder and the tragic fate of Paladin Taggedy.
Get it online now, Knight!
It's online, Paladin.
Take this! Suppressing fire!
Place the charges. It's now or never.
EL7 is the end zone. Bravo Central.
Taggedy, look over here. The equipment. Is this place a lab? What the hell were they doing here?
The mission first. Rig the charges. Another tunnel this way! Ah! Incoming! Incoming!
If we fail, brothers, target these cords. Find whoever made these things and...
Ad Victoriam.
In the days immediately following Operation Touchdown, the Brotherhood believed Taggedy's Thunder to be dead. However, they also reported no more fissure sites being developed in the bog. They also reported no new sightings of scorchbeasts. It would seem as though, while Taggedy and her squad may have made the ultimate sacrifice, the mission was a success. The Brotherhood felt, at least somewhat, at peace. That is, at least until a few days later. A week after the thunder had disappeared, tremors began to happen, and fissure sites erupted all across Appalachia. It would seem rather than the scorchbeast plague being quelled, the scorchbeasts instead migrated and found newer, greener pastures to raid on. It was at this point that all hell broke loose. The Brotherhood, already weakened by losing its best men down in Glass Cavern, was already struggling. Their ammo dwindling, their manpower severely stunted, and with Camp Venture already being closed off years prior, the training of new troops never happened. As new troops were no longer being trained, Fort Defiance and all of the strongholds around the Cranberry Bog were not properly equipped. The first to fall were the kill zones. Running out of ammunition and later personnel, they were very quick to be destroyed. Later, the Scorchbeasts and the Scorched moved over to Fort Defiance. Turns out that the sonic wave generator that they had installed at the asylum wasn't enough to attract all of the Scorchbeasts, and the biggest concern was that they would make their way north towards Thunder Mountain Power Plant, and in turn, that's eventually what they did. At this point, the Brotherhood were fighting a battle on all fronts. There was no safety, there was no haven that they could turn to. All of the bridges that they'd previously built, they'd also burned. The responders didn't trust them, the Free States would not work with them. They were on their own, outmanned, outgunned, and out of time. It wouldn't be long after the Scorched attacked Fort Defiance that Defiance itself would fall. Before that happened, however, the troops at Fort Defiance managed to get one last transmission to Thunder Mountain to let them know that Defiance had fallen. Thunder Mountain was their last chance. Thunder Mountain, being the last bastion of the Brotherhood of Steel, managed to outlast Fort Defiance by just a single day. By the time the last transmission had reached Thunder Mountain, there were only 2 survivors left, 2 squires. They were holding out on the roof for as long as they could, but their SAM turrets quickly ran low on ammunition, and the scorched beasts were flocking in large numbers. The squires then retreated into the power plant. In there, they held out as long as they could, fighting off Scorched for as long as possible, but eventually, it proved too much. At long last, the Brotherhood of Steel was wiped out. To the last man. 7 years after these events, the dwellers of Vault 76 would later emerge and continue the mission of the Brotherhood. Eventually, they would find out how to access the nukes, and they would launch on the home of the scorchbeasts, finally opening up the last fissure site. They would be the ones to fight the leader of the hive mind, the leader of the Scorched, the Scorchbeast Queen. Through a long and exhausting battle, they would eventually reign triumphant and end the Scorched Plague for good. So, you've made it to the end of the video. How the hell have you managed that? Over 35 minutes of me talking and playing the game and playing logs. You're mad, and I love it. I absolutely love it. But while this was a very, very, very in-depth look at the Brotherhood in Fallout 76, remember that this is just the pre-Wastelanders content. At some point, we will be going through the post-Wastelanders as well, and later going through all the previous iterations of the Brotherhood, and eventually making an overarching Brotherhood video. In addition to that, I have my eyes on several other factions that I would love, absolutely love, to make extra videos on. On top of that, keep your eyes peeled because we do have other videos coming on multiple different lore perspectives, such as the Mothman, the East State Penitentiary, and so many others. Now, if you did enjoy the video, make sure that you are liking, subscribing, and sharing me around. I would love, love, love to see all of your beautiful friends, all of your beautiful community members coming on over and checking out the content. Let's also not forget that I also stream on Twitch, so I will be leaving my Twitch link and all of my other social links in the description below, so make sure you're checking me out over there. Come and give a follow and get to see all of the action live. Other than that, I do believe I need to get working on this next video. Thank you very much and good night everyone. Bye bye.